The vase hit the marble floor at 11:47 p.m., and Elena Marsh froze with her hand still raised, because she hadn't touched it. She hadn't touched anything. She was 3 rooms away, folding towels in the East Wing linen closet, when the crash echoed through the empty mansion like a gunshot. She found Roman Cross standing over the shattered porcelain. His tie loosened, a bottle of scotch open on the table beside him, untouched. He wasn't looking at the mess. He was looking at a photograph that had fallen from the mantel, face down, glass cracked straight through the center. Mr. Cross? He didn't answer right away. When he finally looked up, the most feared man in the city had the eyes of someone drowning in a room with no water in it at all. Elena had cleaned this house for 14 months, and in that time, she had learned exactly 3 things about Roman Cross. He never raised his voice. He never left a room in disorder. And he never, not once, let anyone see him like this. She had come to the mansion the same way most people in her situation did. Desperate, behind on rent, 6 months out from a diagnosis for her younger brother that had swallowed every dollar she'd ever saved. The agency had told her the client was demanding, private, and paid double the standard rate for absolute discretion. They hadn't told her he ran half the shipping routes on the eastern seaboard through companies with names that meant nothing on paper and everything in certain rooms downtown. She'd figured it out herself 3 weeks in, when she found a man bleeding through his shirt sleeve in the study at 2 in the morning, and he'd simply told her to fetch the first aid kit from the 3rd drawer without a flicker of shame. She'd never told anyone. It wasn't her business, and more than that, he had never once made her feel unsafe in a house that, by every reasonable measure, should have terrified her. Tonight was different. Tonight, the man kneeling over broken glass and a face-down photograph looked less like a syndicate boss and more like someone standing at the edge of a memory he couldn't outrun. "Leave it," he said when she bent to help him clean the shards. His voice cracked around the words. "Barely. Please, just leave it, Elena." It was the first time in 14 months he'd used her first name. She straightened slowly, uncertain whether to stay or retreat, back into the invisible role she'd perfected over the past year. The mansion around them felt different tonight. The same marble floors, the same towering windows overlooking the harbor lights, but something in the air had shifted, heavy and unfamiliar, like a room holding its breath. "Should I call someone?" she asked carefully. "Marco or—" No, the word came out sharper than he probably intended. He softened it almost immediately. "No, not tonight. I don't want anyone else in this house tonight. Elena, just give me a moment." Elena had spent over a year believing Roman Cross was a man made entirely of steel. She had no idea that tonight was the anniversary of the one night his steel had failed him completely, and that she was about to become the only person alive who'd ever seen it happen. She picked up the photograph anyway, careful of the cracked glass, and turned it over before she could stop herself. A woman with dark hair and a soft, unguarded smile stood beside a much younger Roman, both of them laughing at something outside the frame. Elena's stomach dropped. She'd cleaned this house for over a year and had never once seen this photograph. Never seen any photograph of a woman who wasn't a business associate or a rival. "My sister," Roman said quietly, watching her study the image. "Sophia. She died 6 years ago tonight." Elena set the photograph down gently on the table, unsure whether to speak or stay silent. "I'm sorry. I didn't know you had a sister. Nobody does. Not anymore." He dropped into the armchair like his legs had simply stopped agreeing to hold him up. "I keep her photograph in a drawer, not on the mantle, because looking at her face every day is a luxury men in my line of work don't get to keep. Tonight I took it out. I don't know why. I think some part of me wanted to remember what it felt like before all of this." Elena had learned, over 14 months of quiet observation, that Roman Cross treated grief the way he treated weakness, as something to be locked in a room and never visited. Watching him now, unraveling in real time in front of the one person in this house paid to notice nothing, she understood she was witnessing something he had never intended to show anyone at all. "How did she die?" Elena asked, and immediately regretted the bluntness of it. Roman's jaw tightened. "The same men who used to be my rivals. They found out she mattered to me before I understood what that would cost her." He looked up, and the raw honesty in his expression made her chest ache in a way she hadn't expected. "I built walls around everyone I love after that night, Elena. It's why this house has been empty of anyone who actually matters for 6 years. It's easier to protect nothing than to fail at protecting something again." The silence between them stretched long enough that Elena almost excused herself and returned to the linen closet, back to the safety of her role, the invisible woman who folded towels and asked no questions. Instead, something in the way he looked at that broken photograph kept her rooted to the spot. You don't have to be alone with this tonight, she said quietly. Roman looked at her like the offer had physically startled him. You have a shift that ended 2 hours ago. I know. You don't owe me company, Elena. You owe me clean floors and folded linens. That's the arrangement. I'm aware of the arrangement, she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her own voice. I'm not offering because of the arrangement. Something shifted behind his eyes. Disbelief, maybe, or the particular vulnerability of a man and used to kindness that didn't come with a price attached. Why then? Elena considered the question honestly before she answered it. Because I know what it's like to grieve someone in a house too big and too quiet to hold it. I lost my mother the same way. Alone, in a room I couldn't afford to leave, because there was no one left who thought it was their job to sit with me. Roman studied her for a long moment, something unreadable passing behind the careful stillness of his expression. Then, quietly, almost like he was afraid of the answer, stay with me tonight. Not because I'm ordering it. Because I don't think I can face this particular hour of this particular night by myself again. Elena believed the hardest part of the night was already behind them. She had no idea that somewhere across the city, a name from Roman's past, the very family responsible for his sister's death, had just resurfaced with an interest in exactly who Roman Cross had started letting close. They sat together until nearly dawn. Elena curled into the corner of the couch with a blanket Roman had retrieved himself, refusing to let her fetch it. He talked, haltingly at first, then more freely, about a childhood neither of them had expected to discuss. A sister who used to sneak him sweets before dinner, a mother who died before he was old enough to understand the business his father was building, a life that had handed him power in exchange for every soft thing he'd ever loved. Elena talked too, about her brother, about the diagnosis, about the particular exhaustion of loving someone you couldn't afford to properly protect. Somewhere in the small hours, without either of them noticing the shift, the conversation stopped feeling like an employer and an employee, and started feeling like two people who had simply, finally, found someone who understood the specific weight they carried. You're not what I expected when you first started here, Roman admitted, watching the gray dawn light creep across the windows. I expected someone who'd take the paycheck and never look at me directly. You've never once looked away. You're not what I expected either, Elena said. Everyone talks about you like you're a myth. Cold. Untouchable. Nobody mentions that you remember which mug I prefer, or that you leave the heat on in the East Wing because you noticed I get cold there. Roman's mouth curved, the first real smile she'd seen from him in 14 months. I notice a great many things, Elena. I've simply never had a reason to say so out loud before. Neither of them mentioned it again the next morning, when the household staff arrived and the mansion resumed its usual quiet rhythm. But something had shifted quietly and permanently in the space between them, the kind of shift that doesn't announce itself until much later, when it's already too deep to undo. Elena thought that single night had been a private moment between two grieving people. She had no idea it had already been noticed, by someone inside Roman's own household staff, reporting every detail back to the very family that had killed his sister. 3 weeks passed, and the quiet closeness between them grew in small, careful increments. A shared coffee before her shift began, a habit of Roman waiting up until she'd finished her rounds before retiring himself, conversations that stretched longer each night than either of them intended to allow. Elena found herself looking forward to those hours in a way that frightened her more than the mansion itself ever had. You're staying later than your shift requires, Marco, Roman's head of household staff, observed one evening, his tone carrying an edge Elena hadn't heard from him before. Mr. Cross doesn't usually keep people around this long. We talk sometimes, Elena said carefully. Is that a problem? Marco's expression flickered, something calculating behind his otherwise neutral face. Not a problem. Just unusual. Mr. Cross doesn't let people get close, Miss Marsh. I'd be careful about what you assume that closeness means. The warning sat uneasily with her for days afterward, though she couldn't have said exactly why. It wasn't until she found Roman standing in his study with a look of controlled fury she'd never witnessed before that she understood the warning had come from somewhere far more dangerous than simple household gossip. The Castellanos know about you, Roman said without preamble, the moment she stepped into the room. His voice was carefully level. The particular calm she'd learned meant he was suppressing something enormous. They've known for a week. Someone in this house has been feeding them information. Elena's blood ran cold. The same family responsible for my sister, yes. He crossed the room, closing the distance between them with a tension in his shoulders that hadn't been there in weeks. I should have anticipated this the moment I let you close, Elena. I told myself I could protect the people I care about better this time. I forgot that caring about someone is precisely what makes them a target. Don't, Elena said quietly, surprising them both with the firmness in her voice. Don't do the thing where you decide the solution is pushing me away to keep me safe. I've seen enough of your world in 14 months to know that isn't how you actually protect people. It's how you convince yourself you're protecting them while you disappear. Roman's jaw worked, some internal battle playing out behind his controlled expression. I don't know how to do this the other way, Elena. Every time I've let someone matter, I've watched what happens next. Then let this time be different, she said. Let me actually help you fight it instead of deciding for both of us that the answer is distance. He looked at her for a long moment, something raw and unguarded passing across his face before the mask slid back into place. If I let you stay in this and it goes wrong, I don't think I survive watching it happen twice. Then we make certain it doesn't go wrong, Elena said. Together. Roman believed the greatest danger was the Castellano family closing in from the outside. He had no idea the informant feeding them information had been standing in his own house the entire time, close enough to touch the very woman he was trying to protect. The betrayal revealed itself 4 nights later, in the worst possible way. Elena was finishing the last of her rounds in the West Wing when she found Marco standing in Roman's private study, a phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and urgent in a language she didn't recognize but understood the tone of immediately. She backed away too slowly. Marco's eyes found hers through the gap in the doorway, and whatever careful mask he'd maintained for 14 months dropped away entirely. You shouldn't have seen that, he said, ending the call without ceremony. Marco, what? The Castellanos paid better than Roman ever did, he said, closing the distance between them with a coldness Elena had never once suspected lived beneath his professional courtesy. 6 years I've fed them information. Small things, mostly. Nothing that mattered until you walked into this house and gave them the one piece of leverage they've been waiting for since his sister died. Elena's heart hammered against her ribs. Roman will do exactly what I need him to do, Marco cut in. The moment he realizes you're missing. He moved faster than she anticipated, a hand closing around her wrist before she could reach for the door. And the last thing Elena registered clearly before the world tilted sideways was the sharp, chemical scent of a cloth pressed briefly against her face. Roman found the study empty 20 minutes later. Elena's dropped phone the only sign anything had gone wrong. What followed was a version of Roman Cross she had never witnessed and would later struggle to fully describe. A controlled, methodical fury that mobilized every resource his empire possessed within the span of a single hour. Security feeds were pulled. Phones were traced. A dozen men who had sworn loyalty to him for years were suddenly, ruthlessly, being questioned about a betrayal that had apparently been unfolding in plain sight for longer than any of them wanted to admit. Where is she? Roman said, when his men finally cornered Marco 2 hours later at a private dock on the edge of the harbor. The exact meeting point his sister's killers had once used 6 years earlier. Marco, flanked by 2 Castellano enforcers, held up a hand toward the darkness behind him. She's fine. For now. The Castellanos want to trade, Roman. Your withdrawal from the northern shipping routes, permanently, in exchange for her safe return. And if I refuse, then you learn exactly what it feels like to bury someone you love twice. Marco believed he held every card in this negotiation. He had no idea that Roman had spent the last 6 years quietly preparing for exactly this scenario, and that the empty warehouse behind Marco was already surrounded. Roman didn't raise his voice. He never did. You've made a mistake, Marco. Not the betrayal, I should have caught that years ago, and that failure is mine to carry. The mistake is believing I came here to negotiate. The warehouse doors on either side of the dock slid open simultaneously, revealing a dozen of Roman's most trusted men, positioned exactly where the Castellano enforcers had least expected an ambush of their own. The 2 men flanking Marco froze, weapons raised but hopelessly outnumbered. Where is she? Roman repeated, his voice dropping into something far more dangerous than volume could ever achieve. Marco's composure cracked for the first time. Inside, the container on the left. She's unharmed. I swear it. I never wanted. You sold a woman who has done nothing but care for the people in this house, Roman said, closing the distance between them with slow, deliberate steps. You sold her to the same family that killed my sister for money, after 14 months of watching her treat every single person in this house, including you, with more decency than most people manage in a lifetime. Elena's muffled cries reached them from inside the shipping container before Roman finished his sentence, and something in his expression transformed entirely, the calculated fury replaced by something closer to raw terror. He didn't wait for his men to secure the perimeter fully. He crossed the dock himself, wrenched the container door open with strength born of pure desperation, and found Elena bound but unharmed, exactly as Marco had promised. Her eyes wide with fear that dissolved into disbelieving relief the moment she saw him. "Roman, I'm here," he said, pulling her free of the restraints with hands that shook for the first time since she'd known him. "I'm here, Elena. I'm not letting anything happen to you." Behind them, his men secured Marco and the remaining Castellano enforcers without a single shot fired, the negotiation ending not in violence but in the absolute, undeniable collapse of an operation the family had spent months planning. Roman held Elena against his chest on that dock for a long, silent moment, the adrenaline of the last 2 hours finally draining out of both of them at once. "I told you caring about someone makes them a target," he murmured into her hair. "I was wrong about the rest of it, though. I thought that meant I should never let anyone close again. Tonight taught me the opposite. It taught me exactly how far I'm willing to go to keep someone safe, once I finally let myself want to." Elena believed survival was the end of the story. She had no idea Roman was about to ask her a question that would matter more than anything the last 6 years had cost either of them. Marco and the Castellano family's remaining assets in the city were dismantled within the week, quietly and completely, the particular kind of resolution that left no headlines and no loose ends. Only the absolute certainty, understood by everyone still standing in that world, that Roman Cross had drawn a line no one would ever again mistake for negotiable. Elena returned to the mansion 3 days later, not as household staff, but as a guest Roman refused to let leave. She found him in the study where it had all started, the cracked photograph of his sister finally reframed, restored, and placed openly on the mantel where it belonged. "I kept her hidden for 6 years, Roman said, watching her study the photograph. "I told myself it was protection. I understand now it was just fear wearing a more respectable name." "And now?" Elena asked. "Now I think she'd have liked you," he said, a small, unguarded smile crossing his face. "She always said I'd know I found the right person the day I stopped being afraid of what loving them might cost me." He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small object Elena recognized instantly, the silver key from her mother's old house, the one she'd lost during the chaos on the dock 3 nights earlier, the single possession she'd believed gone forever along with everything else that night had nearly taken from her. "Marco had it," Roman said quietly, pressing it back into her palm. "I don't know why he kept it. Maybe some small part of him understood exactly what he was about to destroy." Elena closed her fingers around the key, feeling the full weight of everything it represented. Her mother, her past, the version of herself who had walked into this mansion 14 months ago, believing she was simply there to clean floors and disappear into the background of someone else's life. "I don't need the key to remember where home is anymore," she said softly. Roman's expression shifted, something hopeful and unguarded breaking through the careful composure of a man who had spent 6 years convinced he didn't deserve exactly this. He turned the key over once in his own hand before pressing it back into hers, as if he needed the small ritual of returning it to make the moment real. "When I was a boy," he said quietly, "my sister used to tell me that the people worth keeping were the ones who made an empty house feel smaller just by walking into it. I didn't understand what she meant until you started leaving lights on in rooms you thought I'd forgotten to check." Elena felt her throat tighten. "I didn't think you noticed things like that." "I notice everything about you, Elena. I simply spent 14 months convincing myself that noticing wasn't the same as wanting." He reached for her hand, his thumb tracing slow, careful circles over her knuckles the way he had that first long night on the couch, when neither of them had known yet what they were building. "Then I ask you something I should have asked the night you found me on that floor with a broken photograph. Stay with me, Elena. Not for a shift. Not for a paycheck. Stay because I've spent 14 months learning that the emptiest house I ever built was the one I convinced myself I preferred." Elena looked at the man who had once been nothing more than a name on an agency assignment sheet, now standing in front of her with more honesty in his eyes than she'd ever seen from anyone in her life. "I already stayed," she said. "I think some part of me decided that the night you finally let me see you." Some people spend their whole lives guarding the empty rooms inside themselves, convinced that letting someone in is the same as handing them a weapon. It takes a rare kind of courage to finally open that door and an even rarer kind of love to walk through it and stay. Roman Cross learned that protecting the people you love was never about keeping them at a distance. It was about finally trusting someone enough to let them stand beside you in the dark. If Elena and Roman's story found something in you tonight, if you've ever loved someone enough to stay in the hardest room of their life, tell me in the comments below. I read every single one, and some of your stories are the reason I keep telling these.